Hey everybody, I'm your host, Brendan Lemieux. Welcome to Batter Sports Swing Batter Edition. I'm here with my favorite two folks. Todd, how you doing? Why don't you give us a quick intro?
Hey, I'm fantastic. Really good. I've gone to a therapist, and I've just come to embrace failure with every team I cheer for. So, if you're in New York, welcome to last place.
So, with that being said, what is the football team that you are going to pick this year? Considering the Mets have done so well for you, what team are you going to give that blessing to?
The Jets. Taste that. Goes down just like melted butter.
The best part is, they just, again, the Jets just got Aaron Rodgers. One would think they're going to do great.
Nah.
Todd picked them.
No.
And are also joined by my favorite dad. How are you? You look great. How's life?
Feeling good. I don't just talk about baseball because I read that the Jets also have Dalvin Cook. So this is the
breaking.
This is
Dude, Dad knows football.
This is the Scherzer Verlander for the Jets.
Absolutely.
Oh, no.
What's good?
Oh no!
What's good for the goose?
Aaron Rodgers.
That is the worst way to start an episode.
Aaron Rodgers and Dalvin Cook.
That's who says you can't score in a wheelchair?
Is this when I end the episode? So, holy cow, that's terrible, Dad.
Just say,
Dad. There's Bono's ad. No, it's Dad knows football. There we go. There's your football picks. Get them in early, everybody. Yeah. We're here early or late. So this episode, what I would like to talk about is extremely important for most people in business. All of us in our lives have to deal with somebody in accounting who tells us what we can and can't do, what we can and can't spend, how we can spend, and how spending that is the best or the worst idea ever, and how your group or your division may be outspent or outworked or out-hustled or needs to crimp in some cost, stop using so much paper. Whatever it may be, there's always that budget, if you will. In the
most of us call those wives.
Ooh. So, again, so is your wife the GM?
There you go.
So the age-old question that I always wonder this time of year as we're looking at teams as they start to bubble up and drop below the wonderful 500 line is GM or manager. They're not spent. There's not a lot of money spent in these areas. Usually averages about $1.5 million GM and manager salaries. They're not, exquisite $10 million, $20 million. But yet, if you look at someone like Brian Cashman of the New York Yankees, gets $3 million, just signed a new deal to be the Yankees money manager and talent manager, if you will, of a team that has a payroll of close to, $300 million, $250 million a year. So if you look at that from that perspective, I'm sure there's some clauses and some written in bonus figures if the team wins a World Series, the pennant, what have you. What would you value? We're owning the Pirates. Let's just say we picked them up on a wholesale eBay market, and we are going to town. What would you value the most? Is it the manager or the GM? And would the pay reflect the value of those positions? Todd, what are your thoughts before I get into how I feel about how you would build a franchise?
Well, I think if you're talking to the Cubs and the Red Sox, they're going to say the GM, because you had Epstein, who basically was the guy who worked a championship in there for both teams. It was kind of a big deal, right? So listen, at the end of the day, the GM is putting together the team that the manager's got to work with. And I think usually the GM probably has a more influence on who they hire as manager and who the manager plays. Like everybody talks about the movie Moneyball and, the influence that Billy Beane had on the lineup and what he was able to do by trading away guys that were in the way of the guys that he wanted played. So I think you got to get the GM thing right. So I think I would start investing there first and then kind of work my way down.
So you're GM first person if you own a team. Dad, what say you?
It's the GM. I got a couple examples. The Dodgers, great team, win a lot. Is that because of the GM, or is it because of their manager? I think most people will say they win because they got good players, and anybody can manage that team and win. Let's look at the next best team, or the best team, the Braves. Most people don't even know the name of the manager. I can't say I know the name of the GM, but that team off the field just continues to come up aces with their decisions. It's, to me, the general manager. You start with him, and then managers can come and go, but the GM builds it or destroys it.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I think most of our folks listening in on this podcast would probably agree. You can clearly comment and say what you think is more important to get across the finish line. I will say this about baseball. I think it's more important to take care of the person who wears a suit and not the baseball uniform. And for some reason or another, our managers in baseball like to look like players. I don't know if we need to copy and paste this into other sports. It certainly would be entertaining if you asked me to watch a NBA coach wear an NBA uniform, or a football coach who can wear one of those football uniforms. Anyways, I don't understand why a Major League Baseball player has to wear the uniform. I've never once seen a Major League Baseball player start warming up his arm, other than maybe Nolan Ryan. And I would easily argue that the front office GM team is more important than just the GM. If you look at the Texas Rangers, for instance, Nolan Ryan is an advisor of the team. They can use certain players and certain folks to help, bring in that influence, if you will, how that works. That cohesive unit in the front office is very important. I will say this, though, about these teams that I think is very interesting. Last year, the Houston Astros won in a very, very exciting Major League Baseball World Series, and they beat the Houston Astros. Who did they work on? The Phillies. Phillies were the surprise team. So they had Dusty Baker, and if everybody recalls, the Astros had the controversy where they fired, and not even controversy, they admitted guilt to tipping pitches. And so the manager had to go, and that's the other part that I think why the GM gets that elusive kind of get-out-of-jail-free card, if you will. They were tipping pitches. Was the GM or the front office aware of it? Yes, they got fined, but no one chased the GM out. They chased the manager out because the manager executed on that decision, and therefore he had to go. So the manager leaves, they bring in Dusty Baker. Dusty Baker leads them to a championship. How influential is a manager of that stature? Or again, if I go back and look at like Phil Jackson and what he did in the NBA, I think in the NFL, there's coaches that people put a lot of weight on. And then Major League Baseball, I just don't think people think too hard about it. To your point, Dad, the Braves are excellent. The Dodgers are excellent. I don't think anyone's looking at the Dodger manager, Dave Roberts. I think he's not very good. But to your point, he gets the job done because he has so much talent. You can't really pick a bad move, even though he has shown that he can do that in the playoffs. So I think the manager is key as a closer is key. You don't want to put all your eggs in the basket of a closer, and you don't want to put all your eggs in the basket of a manager. However, when you need a clutch, important decision or an important philosophy, that's where your manager becomes very important. And that goes back to the GM understanding what that looks like. Like, if you don't have that closer, it shows. The Diamondbacks have proven that another year where no closer, no finisher, you're not going to win games, you're not going to win important matches, and you need those games won if you're going to make a push. And that's really going to sink you. So similarly, if you're a GM and you bring everybody together, but your manager is really lacking on those important games, when the Dodgers play the Braves in the playoffs, for instance, or the Phillies, they come up short. And I could easily argue, again, finishing my point, and then we'll get your comments. I could easily argue that the Dodgers should have won a real championship, not a COVID championship, with the elaborate talent that they've had, but due to poor mismanagement on the field in the playoff games, that's why they have been sunk time and time again.
But why doesn't the GM make a change?
The GM of the Dodgers make a change?
Right. Why doesn't the GM of the Dodgers make a change with the manager? If his roster that he's putting together is getting mismanaged so much, why doesn't he make a change to the manager?
Because you have a 100-game winner every year. And if you're looking at the cohesive unit, maybe he's talking with player personnel and he has a really great player personnel. They feel really great about him. I mean, I'm sure you get advisements in that whole dialogue. My perspective from the outside is that they should have more championships. The Dodgers are a loaded team. And when I look at the Braves versus the Dodgers over the next 10 years, and they're both loaded, both of these teams are loaded, I would put my money on the Braves.
And what's crazy about the Braves is that GM has signed guys he's underpaid every single person on that roster and locked them up for a long time.
If you compared contracts of what the GM for the Braves have done in comparison to the Dodgers, you could easily argue the Dodgers have overpaid, and they have lost, but they're okay with that. It's almost like I started this side hustle, and if it doesn't go well, I don't care. If I started X or Y, it doesn't really matter. Because I'm so wealthy, it doesn't matter. The Braves, I feel, every dollar has a purpose. Every contract is purposeful. There's a reason this person needs to go to the team. There's a reason that person doesn't need to be on the team. Where if you're the Dodgers or the Yankees or what have you, I could just load up with another player. I don't see him trying to find the missing piece per se. But to the GM manager argument, I do agree. GM first, get the suit locked up first. But I think the manager is extremely critical in the areas it's hard to know until you're in those moments.
I think I've always thought the manager get too much credit and too much blame. However, there are some things that clearly are the manager's fault. For example, not pulling a pitcher on time, leaving him too long, or bringing in a reliever who is not going to get these guys out based on his record. They make bad moves that you can blame some losses clearly on the manager, using or not using the right people. But that probably isn't more realistic. That's probably not more than 4 to 6 games in a 162-game season. So they get too much blame, too much credit. For example, 2 years ago, when the Braves beat the Dodgers, was it really Roberts' fault that they had 3 good batters come up with runners on second and third, got behind by 1 run, and they all struck out? Now, is that Dave Roberts' fault? I mean, one of them was Mookie Betts. So sometimes you got to say you did the right things, it just didn't work out. And what I do find interesting is, my opinion is the general manager is the most important, but I don't know the names of general managers except for Brian Cashman because he's been there longer than God. I don't know the names of general managers. The Baltimore Orioles, the best story in baseball. I have no idea who their general manager is. I just looked up to find out what their manager's name was. And they are doing phenomenal, but who gets the credit? Well, they'll give a lot of credit to the manager who'll probably be named Manager of the Year for his record, but that team was built by the organization from the ground up.
The Orioles have paid heavily for the general manager. In fact, he's one of the top 5 general managers in baseball. He built the Phillies organization, Dan Duquette, and now he's with the Orioles. And so when you say you don't know the name, I understand that, but it's like Epstein had his methodology when he won with Boston and went to the Cubs. Everybody, again, Epstein was a household name. Dan should be a household name. There should be. I'm sure there's going to be books written about him. His philosophy for building a team and what he brought to the Orioles organization. Not only did he bring that methodology to the organization, but he told them to be patient. He told them to wait. He told them that the process is going to work. So those are also hard conversations to have because a lot of times teams want to show you they have excitement and they're right there. So they're dipping their toe partially in success, but they also are dipping their toe into like a realistic budget. So like we're going to splurge on these individuals, but we're not going to splurge on the whole team because that's ridiculous. But we're going to do some here and some there and try to make a quilt out of this team. So we always focus on those teams that are highly, highly paid, high salaries, Mets, Yankees, Padres, things of that nature. And clearly the Padres and Mets have not panned out at all this year. And we like to make fun of those folks. But there's a lot of teams in that middle ground that are spending money here and there, hoping to get that one salary that helps you get over the edge while you underpay or pay a lot less for the rest of your team. So I think the process that a general manager can bring in with that confidence, and Dan's only allowed to do that because of his success in the past.
Well,
in my opinion.
because most general managers have pressure from the owners to put seats in the stands. And when your team's really bad and you're drawing 8,000 people to a game, the owners are going to be saying, hey, I got to sell some more hot dogs here. Let's get some people in there. And to hear, you got to be patient. It's going to take us 3 or 4 years. Most owners don't want to hear that. So credit to the Orioles and to Duquette, because they sure have accomplished a lot. So I just, that's a pressure you don't think of, is that the general managers are really forced to go out and get a big name guy so they'll sell some tickets.
Right.
You got to come to the ballpark because we got Christian Yelich. Come on, he's a great player. So they decided.
Have you seen the Orioles games though on TV, or like have you watched, like they have that spray guy in the outfield and that type of thing? Like that's a fun atmosphere.
Oh my goodness,
to be a part of. Like that's probably one of the stadiums I want to like take a weekend and go down and like drive down to Baltimore and see a game, because it just looks like a fun place to go.
The only reason it's fun, and the only reason why it's that way, is because they're winning. If they were Kansas City this year, or if they were not a good team, you would say, oh, they have a good time. Well, they're losers. That's good. I mean, we have a pool at the Diamondbacks.
I have zero desire to go to Atlanta and see a Braves game.
So do the Brave fans. I don't think their attendance is that great, and they always win.
What's his name? Alexander Anthopoulos or whatever is the GM of the Braves. Like, he has not worked the financial miracle that the GM of the Orioles has worked. The Braves are number 10. They got $200 million on the books, but they've signed guys in their 20s. And listen, you gave up Freddie Freeman and then replaced him with somebody better.
Yep.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
No, and the other part that's hard to wrap your head around is when Matt Olson was picked up, anyone could have got him.
Right.
He was not like it was a bidding war. Freddie Freeman was the man. And when the Dodgers nabbed him, they paid a lot of money. So they paid less for Matt Olson, and Matt Olson is playing better than Freddie Freeman. So what's in the sauce of the Braves versus the Dodgers? I'm not going to speculate, but I'm just saying the Braves have done a great job. Going back to the GM manager conversation, the Baltimore Orioles will have a higher payroll. That is going to occur. But to get from as bad as they were to where they are at now, which if you go back to our preseason picks, I didn't get all of them right, but I did say the Orioles were a great long shot bet.
You did.
To put money down with the odds were where they are to win that division. And I swear to God, there are going to be some happy people out there, because the Orioles have the thing that is very hard to come up with. They were good last year and young, and they withered away at the end, which is hard to keep 162 games as a young team. They already went through it. This is their second year. Can they keep it going? I don't know. But
that's a really interesting formula that you're thinking of there, is the idea that the team is young and does well and then withers away at the end. And so my question is Tampa Bay doing that this year?
I think they have a couple issues besides that. I mean, that issue of the whole player controversy. I mean, that hurts a team morale, whatever is going to happen with that.
Yeah.
Is Tampa, we all thought Tampa was going to wither away. I still think Texas is going to stumble against Houston. I still think we have a lot of baseball left here. But looking at the GM and what you're doing, if I look at some teams, especially younger teams that are really good, like the Reds were very exciting. Can they end the year exciting, or are they going to wither away and be really good for next year? Because the Reds...
No, that was the Guardians that traded Bell.
Yeah, the Reds and the Orioles are both of those they're in that bubble up kind of market. The other thing that's interesting right now is the TV deals, with everything happening with television and the markets, the independent markets, if you will, and what's happening there is going to change a lot of the view of how baseball is, how you manage a team's payroll. So the other pressure that we don't look at is, and this is why I think the GM is extremely important. The GM has to navigate two very difficult conversations. The first one is an owner saying, here's how much money I'm willing to spend, make me a winner. And then going to the manager who says, I really need this player. And he goes, I can't afford him. Here's the guys that you have, make them work.
Right.
So he has to have two very hard conversations, and then he's held responsible for the money he had to manage that he did not get to choose, and the success of him not having to put in the positional players. So I think
so that's
so.
I guess
he's got to be a navigator of personalities.
I got a question for you. Going back to one of the guys that you mentioned, I think earlier, one of the highest paid GMs, Brian Cashman came in 98, 99. Did he just inherit a team and get lucky by having a budget? And has he totally played out his hand and he's got no bullets left in the gun now?
My opinion of the Yankees GM is very, very simple. He has been chasing the rings that he had previously got. You can say it's from a previous administration and that he rode that wave of success, because one of the things that I think was truly and is still truly missing from the Yankees had the star players, but they also had a lot of players that were not their third baseman, Paul O'Neill. They had really good seasoned players that added Scott
Brocious, that's who you're talking about.
Yeah, Scott Brocious, and then Bernie Williams, was it?
Yeah.
For the center field. They had a lot of individuals who were not paid a lot of money, but were willing to do the grind. And right now, the Yankees have just loaded themselves up with a superstar. Then they get excited about this young up-and-coming guy that could be, but then you got to fit with the superstars. And there's another thing I think the manager has struggled managing. If you manage a high payroll team, what does a team dinner look like when you have 7, 8, 9 guys that are making $30, $40 million a year versus the rest of the team? How do you keep that cohesion going? So that's the part that Tampa, I think, has a little better, is they don't have a lot of high payroll guys, not to mention the one individual. And right now, that's the part of the Orioles that's really great. When they have a team meal, what are they doing? Going to Outback? I mean, they're not going to the, like, can you imagine the meals the Yankees players are eating versus, like, even the Mets players, what they eat in comparison to these other teams? They have taken the role of, we're scrappy, and we're going to do that. And you need the scrappy players in the playoffs. You need that guy who's willing to do whatever it takes. Dusty Baker, stick your elbow out there. Don Baylor, I think, was also a guy who got hit by pitches quite a bit. And you need guys that are willing to be scrappy, and that's the part that I think the Braves have somewhat, but they still have a lot of flair. There's a lot of flair out there in baseball.
I think that the issue of having young guys who fade at the end, that's more likely to happen to Baltimore than Tampa, because Tampa's been in the playoffs. Tampa's problem to me is injuries. They've got a series of serious injuries that are making it difficult for them. But I don't think playoff experience is one of them. Baltimore playoff experience is an issue. We'll have to see how that plays out. I got to talk about a general manager's move that have just blew me away, and I still can't get over it. 2 years ago, when the Braves won the World Series, they had 3 outfielders in that World Series team who delivered big hits. None of them were even on the team in August. All their outfielders got hurt, and they had to go and find 3 guys by trades and waiver wires and everything. And it was those 3 fill-ins who really won the World Series for them. And they pulled that off. It's like a magic trick, how they got that outfield together. I'm still impressed with that.
I think that's one of the areas that a GM, I think, works with a manager, because the managers and the talent evaluators, who's going to come up clutch, how are they performing in these at-bats, and what do we really need? So in our debate, if you will, of a GM manager, I think both are very important. It depends on how they work together, how they work with the vision, because, again, you can't have a manager who disagrees with the vision of what the GM's doing. And also you want to have a manager that's listening to the manager's input of what's happening in the trenches. You got to know what that flavor looks like.
It's interesting theory, but do you happen to have the list of the 5 or 3 highest paid general managers? I would love to know that, because I don't know what it is.
So number 1 is Brian Cashman of the Yankees.
Okay.
He's number 1 with $5 million a year. Number 2 is Mike Rizzo of the Nationals at $4 million a year.
It's astonishing.
He started in 2009. So he's been the general manager since 2009. Brian Cashman's been the general manager since 1998. So again, this is a lot of longevity. Number 3 is Dan Duquette of the Orioles at $2 million a year. And I would guarantee he's probably making more than some of his players.
Yes.
So he started in 2014, and he had a payroll at $100 million. So he actually went through this entire transition of removing payroll and just started again. Next,
Chris Davis was 70% of that.
yeah, he's still paying Chris Davis. The next 2 are the Cardinals. Is the Cardinal GM John Mozeklik at $2 million a year, and then Dayton Moore of the Kansas City Royals at $1.5 million. And he has been there since 19. He was assistant director. He became the GM in 2006. So again, you have 2 GMs that have the Royals have won a championship since 2006. The Nationals have also won. The Orioles have not. We all know, like we talked about with the Yankees, and then the St. Louis Cardinals have been good for so long. It's very shocking how bad the Cardinals are. But the Braves GM is not on that list at all, and you're talking about $1.5 million to $5 million. You're not even talking about a large sum of money when it comes to
comparatively to payroll, yeah.
But also look at how long they've been in the position. That's a long time since 1998 for Brian Cashman to get to $5 million.
I think some general managers, let's use Kansas City. Kansas City did win a World Series, okay? I think that they consider themselves like a family. So that guy who's there, even though they don't have much now, they just have the ultimate trust in him, and he's not going to lose his job unless he commits a crime or something. Cashman's like that. He's just been there so long. It's like he's part of the family. I don't know. I think the same thing with the Nationals guy. He won a World Series, so they're not too anxious to get rid of him. But it just seems to me there's that goes on at the general manager level, but rarely does that trickle down to the manager.
That is also true.
The manager.
I look at it in my line of work. I look at the manager as the project manager, overseeing several projects. You can let him go if he doesn't perform here or there. And the general manager is like the program, who is in charge of the whole program, how it goes. The program manager will have a lot more leeway than, say, a project manager who's working on one project. If the project goes sideways, you could have 10 in a row that are great. Once one goes sideways, they can say it's been real.
The GM, I think, also sets the culture, too, as far as accountability is concerned. And I think part of that is putting together team chemistry and being aware of that. And I think that's one thing that AA down in Atlanta has done really well. He's put together a team of 20-somethings that I'm just telling you, just watching the Braves play, that team, there's a team chemistry there where they're just expecting to win, and they love beating people. I think they have 4 or 5 guys on that team that have played every game this year. Every game.
Wow.
And one of the things they talked about in the series with the Mets, they talked about the fact that the culture in Atlanta is you are expected to go out there and play every day. If you're healthy, you don't get a rest day. You're here to play baseball, and it's not enough to just win a series. They want to sweep you. Like, they want to win. And it's not enough to just, like, we're not going to suddenly go easy on you because we're up by 8 runs. We're going to pound you into the dirt, and we're going to like it.
The Braves also have weathered serious injuries in their starters, but they just are so deep, and they just move that around. And they're just, the whole organization is so well put together. They're a very noble adversary for a long time to come.
Yep.
So in the land of hobbies, and these are obviously rich man hobbies, baseball, all these sports, I would say that we all agree on GM. Love to hear your comments. Love to see your input on general manager or manager. I will say this about the whole entire staff, if you will. Todd, you're 100% right about the GM setting the tone. I think from a minor league up to the major leagues. And I think finding that key manager, I think the goal of a general manager is to find that key manager that puts them over the top. And those key decisions. And again, here's the hard part about baseball, to add to your point. A manager may have an impact on 6-10 games in a regular season, but a manager sure as heck can have an impact on the 7-game, 5-game series. wild card game series. A manager can ride or die. And that's the other thing. If you go back to those moments in time, the Randy Johnson coming in for Kurt Schilling. Just not even using a bullpen, using those players, just going with those that you have when you're in Game 7. So there's so many things, and Kershaw's been used or held in. Pedro Martinez, the famous game where they kept him in too long. There are so many of those key moments that define that game. Dad, to your point, you have the 3 best hitters, and they all go out with a guy in second and third.
Listen, I want to know what listeners, viewers think. What's your position on the GM, and how important is that? And I think us doing a follow-up episode just on the managers would be a good idea too.
Leading with Brandon Hyde, the manager of the Orioles.
How about, I thought we were going to talk about Buck.
No. Well,
folks, that's all we have right now for Swing Batter.
Are you talking about John Candy and Uncle Buck?
Yeah, you might as well.
Uncle Buck was having more fun.
Yeah.
I am your host for Swing Batter, and we are with Batter Sports. We thank you so much for your time, and we are excited as we guide you up into the playoffs. I hope you bet on the Orioles at the beginning of the season and you cash in all those chips, and then you can watch one Formula One race in Vegas in November. That's what you can do.
There you go.
Thanks so much. I'm your host, Brendan. Have a good one.